Hi, and welcome back to Politics in the Pulpit, a lectionary-based preaching resource designed to ask the provocative question of how politics could appear in our preaching this week. I'm Alex Clare-Young, and I'm hosting this three-part series of Christmas specials featuring JPIT and friends. We're continuing to experiment with recording in person over the Advent and Christmas period. In three shorter episodes, we're diving into one reading from the Hebrew Scriptures and one Gospel reading for Christmas Day, for the 28th of December and for the 4th of January, taking you through the season of Christmas to Epiphany, when we will begin our next season of Politics in the Pulpit. Check out our previous episodes for parts 1 and 2, covering the readings for Christmas Day and Sunday the 28th of December. I'm back with our guests Christine Ntim, Thomas Niblett, and Erica Lees Smith. Christine is the representative to the Youth Assembly of the United Reformed Church for Thames North Synod, which is the synod that we're recording in. Thomas is the Constituency Action Network intern for JPIT, and Erica Lees Smith is the communications intern for JPIT. It's good to be with you all again. The lectionary readings for Sunday, the 4th of January, are Jeremiah 31, verses 7 to 14, and John 1, verses 1 to 9, maybe, and also in particular, verses 10 to 18. I know it gave us some brackets. I didn't quite know how to talk about those. So with that in mind, let's delve into the texts. Erica, I think you mentioned a particular theme that had come to your mind thinking about these texts. Would you like to talk a bit?
Yeah, so when I was reading them and preparing for this, I thought that particularly kind of motifs of parents and children came up quite a lot and kind of made me think about caring relationships and how we can, I think particularly how the nativity story encourages this idea of creating supportive and welcoming communities and relationships between people, not necessarily just a parent and a child, but between anyone and sort of anyone that feels like family or seems like family. So, you've got like the shepherds and you've got the wise men, particularly as this will be marking Epiphany as well, and kind of how they could be argued as part of Jesus' extended family coming into the story. And I was just thinking about how we can apply this in our lives, recreating kind of these welcoming communities and relationships after Christmas, when everyone goes back to work and back to school, and sort of might fall into traps of forgetting some of the things that we were talking about in the previous episodes. Of the joy of Christmas and the hope, because January could be so dreary, and then also how potentially these kind of family relationships can link to welcoming refugees and the work we've been doing on refugee campaigns, like Together with Refugees at the start of December, and kind of welcoming people from all walks of life into our church families. So those are some of the things that stood out to me.
Absolutely. I was thinking as you were talking, you mentioned the wise men that are often sometimes referred to as the Magi as well. That word that is used is only used one other time in Scripture, and it is used to talk about someone who's kind of rejected and cast out from their community, because the idea that they're a Magi is thought of as kind of being some sort of magician and that there are evil spirits involved. So I think that we can consider that the Magi might have been people who were outsiders and who would not kind of be easily accepted into Christian community, but they were some of the people who came and brought gifts to Jesus. So I think if you're going down that Epiphany route, kind of thinking about what it means that the Magi are part of the story could be a really helpful justice thing to bring in, particularly when we're in the kind of post Tommy Robinson's Carol service, thinking about the way that refugees, particularly refugees who follow a faith other than Christianity, are thought of as being particularly unwelcome. But at Christmas, it was Magi, it was people who potentially followed quite a different faith from Judaism or Christianity, who came and brought gifts and kind of really understood who Jesus was actually at that moment.
And like they bought gifts and stuff. and you talked about communities in churches and maintaining that even after Christmas is over, and maybe like looking at even like thinking on like resolutions and stuff, like what are we bringing to the church? How can we bring, what gifts are we bringing, you know, to create that community, to create that covenant, basically that structure, in the church.
Absolutely, and this is also the first Sunday in the new year, so let's have a bit of a think about resolutions. Christine, is there something that you would particularly like to do in 2026?
2026. Don't even know, you know, guys, this is so bad. Probably, I think as a young person, I'm probably thinking now about like, what, do you know what? It's funny because ever since I turned 22, those are people saying like, you know, everything at 18 but nothing at 22, and like it's like now I'm reevaluating like, what do I actually want to do now? Like, what now is that time, like what do you want to bring? I get gifts. What do I want to bring to society from a Christian lens as well? Like, what do I want to bring? What gifts has God blessed me with that I can bring to the table, which is what I'll be thinking about next year. But definitely that is the question for the next year to work on.
Many gifts.
Great. Up my sleeve.
Thank you for reminding me
hat.
how much older I am than the rest of the people in today's podcast episode, Christine. But also, talking about gifts kind of links into what I was thinking about, because I find myself kind of most at home doing creative things, and particularly writing. But because I write a lot in my role now, I've kind of stopped writing a lot personally and blogging and things like that. So I really want to do more blogging and reels and things from a personal perspective next year, which I'm really looking forward to, and kind of thinking about justice from that personal perspective outside of my work life and outside of my Jacob life as well. Is something that I'm really excited to do in the new year. What about you, Thomas? Have you got any hopes or resolutions for the new year?
No, something I really enjoy is kind of walking or hiking, and it's been on the back of my head for a while that I have done a sort of pilgrimage style walks, but I'd really like to kind of formalise that and do, you know, maybe some of the kind of Saints' Ways, or the, you know, there are a couple of charities that kind of advertise famous walks. So I'd like to get to that. Find God on the journey.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I know. How about you, Erica?
I am thinking about doing some more sort of crafty activities, creative activities. I particularly outside of work do a lot of music, but other than that, I feel like most people, we're just trying to find ways to get off social media, get off our phones in our downtime, and I'd quite like to take up knitting or crocheting or something like that. And then also you can make gifts for other people. Saying that about a gift,
Sounds good. I've also been thinking about the fact that in previous years I've done the refusing to do resolutions, because actually we can all get really busy, and actually saying, do you know what, it's actually okay to just be. That might be something important to note to this time of year as well.
I did do Veganuary last year, and I'm undecided about whether to do it again, because it wasn't as hard as I thought it would be, but it...
Imagine I was vegan for a while. It's tough.
You don't look particularly like you are.
I see the irony there. I'm turning in my head. I probably should have thought that one.
But Thomas, were there any other themes that you noticed in our readings that you wanted to bring out?
I think thinking about God at different scales, which is something I'm thinking about in the last episode as well, that the Jeremiah kind of is God in quite a powerful way, above us, leading us, maybe over us, you know, and finding trust in kind of a clear leader, almost as the shepherd figure, right? But then also throughout all of this first bit of John, from verses 1 all the way to 18, I think it's very much God horizontally to us. Kind of, it's very much thinking about coming down to the level of humanity within us, alongside us, and that kind of dualism between the way we think about of God on different scales, different heights. I think it's really productive, actually, especially in a justice lens. It can be really important as a church and as individual Christians to be kind of quite strong in saying we are led by God to condemn this or to uphold this, whatever a justice issue might be. But it's also important to kind of say, well, as Christians, we're led to be really reflective and to really think quite hard and really listen and be soft, as well as kind of hard in our justice sense. We can be soft and think and be quite gentle. And I think I would characterise the light that John is talking about as quite a gentle presence in a way. And I think that it's helpful at different points to think about both. I'd also kind of think about, specifically in verse 18 in John, no one has seen God. I think that really speaks to this, that that is true on one level, of course. But we also do see God all the time in the actions of people and nature. You know, let's look at St. Francis, seeing God in the small things, in the animals. And we can see God in the big things, in the big shifts, in the suddenly things feel possible. And we can't quite explain why this is maybe a political movement that suddenly succeeds, or a sudden medical breakthrough. You know, the things that feel kind of like it would have been impossible yesterday, and yet suddenly everything seems possible. And there are days like that we experience, and I think you can put that down to God as kind of form of miracle. That it's true that no one ever sees God, but I think we're really called to try and to find God in the cracks.
Yeah. You know, on Instagram, I do this thing like Happy Sunday post, and last week I did this. I switched up and I was like, there was this post I saw, and it was like BRB trying to find God in everything. There was this girl taking a picture of like the leaves or something, and it's like, yeah, we should all do that. Like, you know, you find God everywhere.
I think that's what being a contemplative person is, and of course that's very much part of what we should be as Christians, as well as kind of certain about principles and kind of quite brash. I think that's good too, but sometimes looking at leaves is pretty good.
Looking at the sunset, you know.
Yeah, my old church used to do I think it was a monthly. It was right next to the local arboretum, which was absolutely beautiful, particularly actually at this time of year, where the Sunday that we're talking about, in sort of early January, February time, when it's all frosty but really sunny, kind of clear winter day, and we do these walks with wonder, and basically just walk around and have a nice time reflecting in the tree. I think that's a really nice thing to do in the new year as well.
Absolutely, and all of these kind of small things and reflective things, I guess, are ways in which everyone can see God, and that makes me think about the fact that for me these readings are really speaking about inclusion and welcome and kind of what those things mean as well. So, you know, in the 1 John, we have this, he came to what was his own, and his own did not accept him. So this sense that God in Christ isn't kind of seen or understood fully, and this kind of confrontation of exclusion and this need to kind of offer radical welcome. And then going back to the Jeremiah, we have the inclusion of the blind and the lame, those in child, those in labour. There's this everyone being involved in justice seeking. And as someone who often finds myself on the fringes due to disability, I find that kind of sense of inclusion they're really important, but also that it talks about bringing people from different lands. So it talks about justice kind of restoring the displaced and marginalised as well. And when we're thinking about refugees, for example, I think this reading speak really powerfully to the ways in which actually people who come from far and wide can be part of encouraging us to seek justice. So often we talk as if we need to seek justice for the refugee, for the poorest and most marginalised, for those other people out there, and actually like they can seek justice too, and they can teach us how to seek justice. And I wonder if at Christmas kind of hearing different people.
I think it's also about perspective on who owns God. You know, it's very easy in the church to think that we own God. God is here. This is our building. This is where
recently
Christians.
Who owns God? I was like, what?
I think that's how it's so easy just to say, well, you know, God is here amongst us in this Christian building as people who identify with the label Christian very comfortably. But you know, that's it. You know, and we bring God to people, and that's what mission is, and that's so. It's just so heretical, isn't it? Just to not see. It is. I think you know, when you stop and think about it, it's denying people's kind of dignity for their own experiences of God, but it's also denying that God works within, you know, all people, whoever they are, whatever they're doing, whatever their knowledge of Christianity as well. And that can be. I think that's a real test. especially at Christmas, in the
Yeah.
way that we interact with people who are using this season as a way to express their feelings of faith, of God, of light, and we need to be really good at including that well, and listening, and not only listening, but um, there's the quote about you kind of listen. People have a seat at the table, but who's eating the meal? It's not just about listening to people; it's about being with them and they're no longer being a them and us.
Yeah.
In the church.
And also seeing the image of God in them. I mean, so most of the writing that Jacob has done on human rights, and including the recent slide, it was about human rights roots in the image of God, and the fact that each of us bear the image of God, being kind of the root or the foundation of our human dignity, and that because of that we need to respect human rights. And I think about that, especially at Christmas time. So, looking at each of you, that is looking at God just as much as looking at a baby in a manger. Looking at the person who gets in my way as I roll to the train station at the end of the day because it's crazy season and there are people everywhere. Actually, that person has the image of God as well, but we forget that. We think, let's look at that baby.
I like looking at the baby, but yes, I know what you mean.
Yeah. And also, I guess, coming back to the fact this Sunday will be Epiphany, this is now the point after Christmas where we are experiencing the living reality of Jesus as a human growing up, not just as a baby, but growing up into the world and being a person with all his humanness, and how much we can try and strive to be like him in welcoming everyone and accepting that everyone is made in the image of God.
And two things that we maybe miss about Jesus's journey into humanness is that when Jesus was a child, Jesus was probably a pain in the butt at times, and actually that we can acknowledge that, but also that for most of, maybe all of Jesus' adult life, Jesus was a young adult. So I'm really pleased that I'm sat doing this with 3 young adults, and I almost
you're young adult as well.
Absolutely. So maybe this season is a time to particularly listen to young adults in your life and in your church as.
Please do.
So thank you all very much, and thank you for listening, and I hope that our Christmas specials and all of our episodes this year have helped you in your preaching prep. Don't forget to catch up on the previous episodes of the podcast, including part 1 and 2 of our Christmas specials on our Spotify, YouTube, and other platforms. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review and share it with your friends. And if you haven't followed us yet on the platform that you listen to your podcasts, this is a really good time to do so because we'll be introducing our new host in our next episode. We also have online spaces for further engagement and discussion about faith and politics on our social media platforms, and we will return to recording in 2026. But for now, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year from all of us at JPIT. And I'm going to leave you with some lyrics and a blessing inspired by Love Came Down at Christmas. The lyrics are, love shall be our token, love be yours, and love be mine. So as we move from Christmas into the ordinary seasons of life, may we keep asking the vital question, is this love? May love be our token, love be yours, and love be mine. May it be so. Amen.
Amen.
for me, it was more about the Christmas carol services and actually seeing how different churches do Christmas carol services. Like I went to one in East London, and it was a lot of people from South Asia, so Pakistani Christians and Indian Christians, and they were singing the Christmas carols in their language, and they had their own as well. So seeing like Christmas in different cultures, because on the day, like we're all Christian, but like there's different. Once you bring in ethnicity into it, then there's a different way of doing things. I think that was beautiful to see as well this Christmas.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about you, Thomas? What's the thing you enjoy most about Christmas season?
I think since I was quite young to be midnight mass, I have memories of being quite young in my grandmother's quite small village church, very picturesque, very kind of quaint, and that was lovely. But then last year I was lucky enough to go to midnight mass at Canterbury Cathedral, and that was very different, and was so many people. And I can really remember where we were sat. There were these long lines of people coming up for communion, and it was the most diversity I've ever seen in a church communion context, maybe any church context ever. And just watching all these people and kind of thinking, wow, we're all here, so late at night because it's Christmas in this cathedral. It was an amazing moment. Actually, I'm looking forward to any more midnight masses.
Midnight mass definitely is like I've always found it quite like a grounding thing. Like, okay, this is what Christmas is actually about, because tomorrow is going to be chaos and everyone's running around, at least in my family, kind of trying to get everything sorted and or just crashing from the year and being exhausted. But I'd say probably my favourite thing, at least this year, is maybe like food and fellowship and like having Christmas together and everyone being together. And often when it happens so late in the day as well, it's kind of like a triumphant, yes, all the food is here and we're all so hungry, and it's been made by 3 different people shouting at each other, but who ultimately love each other very much. And yeah, I think that's a really nice aspect for me, kind of everyone eating together. And it's it's not communion, but it's kind of communion like sharing food together.
Yeah. I think for me it's changed a lot over time as well, and it probably used to be midnight mass to some extent. But I haven't had Christmas with my family of origin for probably over a decade. And so often the focus for me on Christmas has been about supporting people who maybe find it more difficult or feel alone. But for the last few years, I've celebrated Christmas with kind of chosen family, a group of friends I'm really close to. And this year, for the first time, their child is old enough that he's really going to understand what's going on. And he's already getting quite excited about Christmas. And I think seeing it through a young child's eyes again is something that I'm just really looking forward to. And just, yeah, I can't even imagine how that's going to be. And that's really exciting for me. Okay.
Cool.
Done.
Oh, weird.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Yeah, because I'm pasting that back in a previous bit. So.
No.